Welcome to the Danny Clinkscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Insightful and witty commentary, probing interviews, and detours from the beaten path.
Welcome to Kansas City Profiles presented by Eason Roofing. Greg Gurley is our guest today, and I guess the first thing I think about when I think about Greg is that when you are in a group of people or around Greg in any way, usually a lot of people are laughing, giving each other some ribbing, smiling, hoisting a beer, having a great time. That's really how I think of Greg Gurley, and of course we're going to explore a lot of that. We're also going to explore a lot of the facts that he is a Kansan, grew up as a basketball player and the son of a coach, became a high school star, won a state championship with an epic and famous shot, went to the University of Kansas, battled through some injuries that really kind of debilitated his peak athletic levels, but still contributed on a Kansas Jayhawks team for 4 years, went to a Final Four, and then subsequently has carved out a career, most of it having some association with the Jayhawks as well. And of course, he has spent time in the broadcasting area, but now his real job, his full-time job, is fundraising for the Williams Fund for the University of Kansas. But most people probably hear him these days and know him these days as the color analyst for the Jayhawk radio network. And he fills all those roles and has filled them through the years, but mostly has filled people's lives with a lot of fun. And that's part of what we'll explore today with Greg Gurley. He's Jayhawk through and through. He's Kansas through and through. And we'll explore many, many things and have many, many laughs straight ahead on Kansas City Profiles, presented by Eason Roofing, right here. We're here with Joe Spiker, the president of Eason Roofing. And Joe, you worked for other companies in the construction industry. What inspired you to start your own company in Eason Roofing?
Well, you know, Danny, when you are working for somebody else, you oftentimes don't get to see the project through from beginning to end, and you don't get the final control over the customer experience. And I wanted to build a place where people can come and get work done on their house and not have to worry about being treated the wrong way and get a good customer service experience start to finish.
The company slogan is "Where Integrity Matters." Why is that so particularly important to you?
Well, for us, what that means is treating each other with respect at work, treating our clients with respect, and making the right choice, especially when no one's looking. So when you're presented all the time as a contractor with choices that have to be made, are you going to make more money on this if you cut a corner? And we just wanted to make a place and a slogan that said to our people and to whoever is our customer, we're not going to do that. We're going to make the right choice, regardless of profit.
Eason Roofing, where integrity matters. Are you thinking of starting a new business? Does your current business feel stuck? Or are you just trying to grow what you already have? Running a business is a lot of work, and it takes the right team to make it all happen. If you're looking to grow your business, call my friends Ben and Greg over at Fuego Consulting. They put together a company that can help you reach your business goals. Whether you're looking to get online, build a social media strategy, or rebrand your business, they can help. Call Fuego at 816-663-9695 or visit them online at fuegoconsulting.com. Fuego Consulting. Let's grow your business together. We're visiting with Larry Marshall, former Chiefs defensive back and punt returner and now a Chiefs ambassador. Larry is a former pro football player with the aches and pains that come with that. And moving on in age, as we all are, what do the Canaway CBD products do for you?
It's been a great relief for me. Being a punt and kickoff returner, collisions were a mainstay of my career, and these Canaway products, the salve especially, has really helped me try to get through every day with the aches and pains that I've had over a career of 7+ years in the NFL.
I get similar benefits as well, particularly with my back. Certainly wasn't a football player. What's the best way for our listeners to get more information about the great products themselves?
Well, I'm so enthused about it, Dana. They just contacted me at larrymarshall.canaway.com, and I can give them all the information they need to help them get through the day as well.
Start gaining all the benefits that Larry and I do from the trusted and reliable line of Canaway products. As Larry said, visit larrymarshall.canaway.com and get information on all the great products from Canaway.
If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at danny@dannyclinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you.
Greg, Leawood, Kansas boy, tell me about, I I never can really picture you as little, but tell me a little bit about little Greg Gurley, about 6, 7 years old, when you first were starting to remember stuff.
Well, my dad was a coach. He coached at Southeast High School from like 64 to 74. So when I was very young, he was a basketball coach and a phys ed teacher, driver ed and all that. And so I hung out at Southeast High School with him at the gym, at the Interscholastic Fieldhouse. And so that was my early memories were watching my dad coach. And then he went into private business in 75. And so he still continued to coach, but my dad was the biggest driving force in my basketball career at an extremely young age. That's what I did. Now, I played all sports, but basketball was always my favorite.
So it was your favorite. A lot of times when I'm around professional athletes or athletes who've achieved things at a very high level, a lot of times the sport they're playing professionally isn't their favorite sport. But I haven't been around a lot of professional basketball players. Basketball's a fun game to play and practice. But you see with other athletes, they'll be like, well, I play football, but I really would like playing baseball.
Well, in this day and age, kids are getting more and more specific to their sport. But when we were growing up, in the fall you played football, in the winter you played basketball, and then you played baseball. And in the summer, you kind of played all three. You just played a lot. That's not really the case anymore. I think basketball is unique in the fact that you can play basketball by yourself. Like, there's no excuse. Like, to play football, you kind of got to have a few guys. To play baseball,
somebody's got to pitch to you.
Yeah,
at least.
You got to have at least another guy to play catch with. Basketball, you got no excuse. If you go out in the middle of the winter, middle of the summer, whatever, you can be by yourself and shoot your 500 jumpers or play with you. Just shoot, practice. I don't think there's enough of that, and I don't want to sound like an old fuddy-duddy that kids don't do it the same way we did it back in the day. But if they don't, I guarantee you that. I mean, my kids didn't. I have 2 girls, and they played a lot of volleyball. But when I tried to get them to play basketball, it just didn't happen. But I encourage them to do it because of the fact that you can go out and just when you're just sitting around doing nothing, go shoot. But that's doesn't happen as much. But I do think that I, as my own little PSA here, I would love to see more kids play multiple sports. I just it drives me crazy when I hear of an 8th grader that says, I don't think I'm going to play football or baseball. I'm only going to concentrate on basketball in my high school career, which I think you lose out on a ton of opportunities. You can get better at basketball by playing football and running track and playing baseball. You get better. I've heard Urban Meyer and other big-time football coaches say we tend to recruit kids that are 3-sport athletes. They are the best athletes.
Yeah, absolutely. And, I always kind of chuckle, I don't know why, because before my senior, I had never played much basketball, but all my friends were on the basketball team. So that summer, I just played basketball all the time because I wanted to be with my buddies. And so I'd shoot for 4 or 5 hours. So I always kind of laugh when I hear these college players going into a season. They say, well, I was working on my jumper this summer and I was putting up 150 to 200 shots, a day. I'm like,
that's nothing.
That's nothing. How about 1,000? I mean,
yeah. And nowadays you can't really lie about that anymore because here at Kansas, our guys wear a chip on their shoes. They have a chip in the ball. So there's a local company that called Shot Tracker that does it, that registers everything that you do. Like if you say I went in and shot 1,000 jumpers, they can go to a computer and say, well, the computer tells me you shot 100. So you can't lie anymore.
As you were growing up, when was the point in time when you felt like you had some aptitude for the game?
At an early age, I was always tall, and my dad made me a guard as opposed to just taking the tall kid and making him a center. So I had the ball handling skills, and I kept growing. My brother stopped growing as far as height-wise at 6'1"-ish, and he was always a paint player. My dad kept continuing to make me handle the ball and be a passer and a shooter and all that. And so I think if I was a 6'5" post player at Shawnee Mission South, I wouldn't have played at University of Kansas.
Right.
I would have probably played somewhere, but I would have been a 6'5" forward or a center. And all you got to do is look at our roster. It doesn't happen. So as a shooting guard at 6'5", 6'6" is what made the big difference. And really, it wasn't till 8th or 9th grade when I could tell that I was better at basketball. I was a pretty good baseball player and very average at football. And when I started going on, back then there were 2 times a year that you go out of town to play basketball. Now you could be in a tournament every week in Boston, Orlando, LA, whatever. But back then we went to 2. It was one in Vegas and one in LA, and that was cool. And that's when the country saw you.
Right.
There was like 1 or 2 recruiting letters or pamphlets that went out, and it was Bob Gibbons was one of them. And if you got into Bob Gibbons magazine or pamphlet, whatever you want to call it, that was a big deal. And that happened when I started going to L.A. and Vegas. And, okay, there's this team from Kansas, and we had some players. We had a guy named Kevin Rabbit, played at Rice. Adam Peaks played at Rice. We had Jed Frost, played at Missouri. I played with Patrick Ritchie. So we had a lot of guys that went on to play Division I basketball, and we were a good team. And I think these coaches and these recruiters and these people started to see, hey, there's some guys in Kansas City. And then as Kansas City has progressed, you got into the big time programs that back with the Rush brothers, and then it really put Kansas City on the map as far as an AAU powerhouse. We were kind of the beginning of that, but that no one. I mean, we were called the Wildcats. We raised our own money. It wasn't shoe company sponsored or anything like that. We sold trash bags. My dad's company. We sold yellow trash bags to raise money to fly to L.A. and Vegas.
That's a cool story, and maybe we can cycle back to stuff like that eventually here in basketball. We'll see the way those things progress. As you're getting to your high school years, were you consumed with basketball? Did you enjoy the experience of being a high school student?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I went to a great high school, Shawnee Mission South, and played with the guys that I ended up playing in high school with all the time. We spent so much time together. The year we won the state championship, I was a junior, and then the 4 other starters were seniors. But the 5 of us, including the guys in my class, making it 8 or 9 guys, we played together from 8th grade on. And I think that's how you build a great team. And we had a great point guard in Kevin Rabbit. We had my cousin, Jay Roof, was one of the guards, and Rod Savage. And then we had a 6'11" guy in the middle that changed shots and got rebounds. So we had a nice mix. High school was great. Some of the greatest memories of my life. Loved my experience there. And then, again, I played baseball, but then I think it was my junior year that I stopped playing baseball. And here I am spouting off about 3 sport athletes. And after my beginning of my junior year, I ended up just playing basketball. But that was more of a logistical thing where I wanted to continue to play baseball, but they didn't really like the fact that I was playing in tournaments and doing stuff with basketball during baseball season. So, it's not all on the kids. I mean, there's coaches that definitely want you to specify what you're going to do. And we went through that with our kids, and they played volleyball, and volleyball's become crazy competitive across the country. And they want you to, after the high school season, they want you to play club.
Right.
And club is about twice as long as high school volleyball season, and it takes a toll. I'm a big opponent of that. I mean, do it if you enjoy it, but I hate the fact that that's like a box you got to check in order to simply play on your high school team and then maybe go on into college. But I'm getting off on a tangent because you asked me about my high school career, but had a blast. Again, some of my best friends to this day are guys that my high school teammates. Right.
What was family life like for you? Your dad would make a switch in what he decided to do, and create. Running your own business, as I know right now, is a challenging thing. What was your relationship with your mom and all this? What was home life like?
I had a great. My parents were awesome. Are awesome. My mom, did everything at home, and then we would go. My dad would take it. I'd go play every night. My dad played up until he was probably 50, and we would go when my dad played, and we would go shoot at timeouts just like you did back then. And so it was awesome. We had a great childhood and great high school upbringing. And it tells you a lot about me, number one, and then my friends also all came from where their parents were super involved. And I mean, we'd have team meals, rotate it 5 ways around every week, and it was great. I mean, but my parents probably in my 4 years at Kansas missed, I think, 3, maybe 4 games. That's home and away.
Wow.
So super supportive. And my dad, again, was a coach. So that's who I talked to all the time throughout my high school and college.
What kind of a dad-coach thing was that? Sometimes those dynamics are good. Sometimes they're not.
I would
some
say,
guys will say that, my dad was really hard on me. Other people, no.
I would say my mom was the sentimental one, and like I would come home crying or something happened at practice that my dad was all over me about because he was tough. He was a disciplinarian, and I needed that. Now my mom was there to calm him down and be like, he's only in 6th grade. Leave him alone. and then Dad would be across the room looking at you like, I'm gonna get you tomorrow or something. So it was there were definitely tears. There were definitely times that I was like, what am I doing? But I'm glad I went through it all, because if you don't have the I wouldn't say negative times, but the trials and tribulations and things that go, if you don't have adversity and all you have is success and again, I'll get off on a tangent again, that everyone getting an award, everyone making the, don't have A and B teams, all that crap. I'm not for that. I think that's, maybe not as a first and second grader, but when you get up there, hey, welcome to life.
Right.
Hey, I didn't get the job. Okay. Like, can you give me another job? Or I didn't get this award. Can you give me another? No, you didn't get it. Now go figure out why you didn't get it. The next time you go out, try to get it.
Right.
And so I'm glad that he instilled that in me. And there were times that I wasn't glad, believe me. But my mom was she would be like, you don't need to do this. Don't, and she wouldn't like go against him, but like, if this is too much, don't do it. And then the next day you're right back at it. So
right.
It was awesome.
What people, I think, know the fact that you would become injured at Kansas, and it affected the way you played. But you were an athletic player when you were younger.
Well, if you talk to people now that see this as I point to my body as a long ways away from the late 80s, early 90s, I was same height, 6'6", but out of high school I was 185 pounds, which is, I was a rail. I was really thin, and I was an athletic guy that could play in the post, could go out and shoot, could dunk on you, and very athletic. And then hurt my back and had to kind of change the way I played, had to turn into
When did you hurt your back?
We think midway through my freshman year in college.
Okay.
There
was no specific.
There was no, it wasn't like a car accident or I fell weird. No, it was a degenerative disorder more than anything. I had 2 bulging discs, and after my freshman year, the doctors said, hey, we can have surgery, and the surgery is a large incision, and we think it'll work, but you're going to be out for the year. So you got a medically redshirt, and we think there's a 60% chance you're going to be better. And I was like, well, I don't like those odds. I don't like missing a year. And they asked, well, can you deal with the pain? And I said, well, I've kind of been dealing with it. What do you mean? And so, I was never a drug guy. I was never a prescription guy. If I couldn't take care of it with ibuprofen, I just toughed it out. And so my liver's probably not real good, I would imagine. And in my social life probably doesn't help that as much either. But so I kind of grin and bear, and just figure it out. And that's what I did. And looking back on it, I'm glad I made that decision. I don't think medically the technology was like nowadays. Yeah, I think you go in there, you have it arthroscopically.
Right.
They don't cut you, and they can probably fix some stuff to make the pain and then the ability to be more athletic. But looking back, the year that I would have medically redshirted was the year we went to the Final Four.
Right.
So I'm glad I did it. I pay for it a little bit now, but that's a price that I was willing, and I'm glad I paid.
Of course, because you had all these attributes as a player, you would be recruited to Kansas, a blue blood program. When did the recruiting process, you mentioned Bob Gibbons and those type of attentions, was it going to be did anybody else have a chance at you?
Not really. I'd say the only time that they did was I'm the same age as the Fab Five, and so Roy Williams really liked Jimmy King.
Right.
And if Jimmy King would have come to Kansas, I still probably would have. But when he decided to go to Michigan, they full court pressed me to sign. And once they did that, it was a no-brainer. And I, again, probably would have anyway, knowing, I knew that when I made the decision to go to Kansas, I was not going to be a starter. You always, deep in my heart, I on the surface, I'm great. I'm Kansas Player of the Year. I think I'm awesome. But I knew there were guys that were better than me, and I knew I wasn't going to be an NBA player or a starter. So I made the decision based on being from Kansas City, a top 5 program in the country is recruiting you, wants you to sign early. How do you pass that up? If I didn't go to Kansas, my number 2 was Oklahoma State because of Bill Self. And that's who I talk to all the time during the recruiting process. He makes fun now about my playing career as I make fun of his. But he makes fun like, Eddie Sutton just said, go find a guy that's got a good GPA, and I'm like, well, you used to tell me how great I was and how I would start. That's what recruiters do. I mean,
right.
And I don't want to use the word lie, but they stretch the truth significantly. And when I that started our relationship back in 1989,
right?
Into throughout the 90s, and we'd run into each other throughout the years on the circuit. And when I got into broadcasting, and then when he took the job, it was perfect. It worked out great for me. I don't know if it worked out well for him having to work with me, but I really, after my sophomore year in high school, so like my freshman year, I got moved up to JV, which was a big deal back then. It used to be, high schools used to be 3-year.
Right.
We were the second year of a 4-year high school. So they had just made that switch from 3 years to 4 years. So I got moved up, which was a big deal, but played very little as a freshman. Like I probably scored 15 points on the varsity, maybe. And then my sophomore year I started, but you still kind of had to wait your turn. Like,
right.
We had a really good team my sophomore year. And again, I started every game, but I wasn't the first, second, or third option by any means. And then, it weeds out. You become a junior, and you become more of the guy, and you just waited your turn. And then my junior year, so after my sophomore year, after the summer, when I had some good moments on the circuit, is when I started to get a lot of letters and phone calls and that. And then, obviously, after the junior year, we won a state championship. You become a pretty hot commodity.
Well, let's talk about that. I know I was doing some research. They recreated the shot a few years ago that you made, and you joked that I remember the story now going into reading that story as that you hit a half-court shot.
It's like a fish that you catch. It just gets bigger and bigger and bigger.
It was really just kind of a long like it's nothing, but it was like a long three-pointer.
Agreed, yeah. So to set the stage, in my junior year, we were undefeated going in the state tournament 21-0. And we won the quarterfinal game, and then the semifinal game was, that people don't really remember unless you were there, was against Wichita Heights, which had 5 guys that were seniors that started as freshmen, and they were really they were probably the best team in the state. They had Darren Dryford, who pitched for the Dodgers, was the starting 2 guard. They had a guy named Cortez Barnes that was unreal.
Right, I remember his
really
name,
good player. Unfortunately, passed away a few years ago, but. It was one of those things that we got to overtime. Kevin Rabbit made a big shot or made a couple of big free throws, put it in overtime. Then we won in overtime to get to this championship game. And then we played Wichita South, which two future teammates of mine, Steve Woodbury and B.J. Williams, were on. I believe they were undefeated as well. And it was a low-scoring game. I think the final score was like 43 to 45.
41.
40, yeah. They're in the low 40s for a state championship game. And I played poor defense, and Steve Woodbury got off an easy shot to put them up by 1. We didn't call a timeout. There's about 12, 15 seconds on the clock, and we kind of scrambled around. and I eventually got the ball I received the ball at about half court, took a couple dribbles, and it was probably let's give it 28 feet, give or take a couple feet. Made it, and we won by 2. The crowd rushes the floor. It was chaos, and there was a gentleman who was head of the Kansas State Athletic Association named Nelson Hartman, who just, in my opinion, made a very poor decision. I mean, we went, so to reset, we won the game,
right,
and we were state champions,
right. So what? The kids are excited.
Kids are excited. Watch any game on TV,
right?
They rush the floor. Not our fault. We're the players. I mean, I guess it's my fault for making a shot, but they he kind of scolded the crowd and told them to get off the court, like yell and get off the court now. And our fans kind of, jeered back, I guess. And then after about probably 5 to 7 minutes, they finally said, because of the actions of this rowdy crowd, we will not award the state championship trophy to Shawnee Mission South, and we will have a special meeting of the high school athletic association, whatever the hell
Activities,
it's called. Yeah. And so we did not get medals put over our neck. We did not get a trophy. We went in the locker room, took a shower, and went home after winning the state championship.
Wow.
And so then media obviously got a hold of it, and it was a big news story for several weeks, if I remember correctly. And then they eventually got together and said, yes, we'll award the state championship trophy, like there was ever a question. But it was just idiotic the way they handled it. It was
right.
Poorly handled. We still win it. It's almost better because we have a good story.
Right.
We are the state champions from 1990, but it was just ridiculous the way that organization handled it.
I'm curious because there's I'm not going to go into my situation, but we won a championship when I was in Little League when I was 11, and then 12 they make you pitch and everything, and it was not a very rewarding year for me. You win the state championship as a junior with all these seniors. What was your senior year like?
Senior year, we had a great year.
There you go.
We ended up we lost in the sub-state final.
That even makes my stupid Glory Days story even more lame.
So we had 4 starters leave, but we had a good cast coming back from guys that didn't start. Brian Merchant, a guy that went on to play at Rockhurst College, had a great career, and a few others. So we, I believe we went into sub-state 18-1, and we were the number 1 team in the state or the number 2. But the way, I'll go back to saying how dumb the high school association is, and this is not just me being bitter. To me, the state of Kansas is woefully behind other states with the way that our high school athletics are managed. And you can talk to Division I coaches all over the country, and they'll say it's a joke the way they do certain things, but that's for another day, I guess. Anyway, in our sub-state final, which has now changed, I believe, but back then, you knew who was in your sub-state at the beginning of the year, no matter what your record was.
Right.
So we're at Wyandotte High School. It's us, Wyandotte, and Blue Valley North, and somebody else. I can't remember who. We win the first game, so does Blue Valley North. We're the number 1 team in the state, and they're the number 2, or vice versa. I can't remember. That's who plays in the sub-state final to go to state.
Right.
I mean, it's a joke.
Yeah.
Now, we lost. They beat us fair and square. It wasn't anything there, but that would have been a much better matchup on separate sides of the bracket getting to Emporia at the time. So we ended the season, my senior year, 19-2.
And
I cried a lot. I was bawling.
There you go. Well, that's actually good to hear. Yeah. But so you had already committed to go to Kansas.
Yes.
And was that in any way? A lot of people would think that was distracting from your play in high school or whatever.
Well, I kind of verbally committed during my junior year, so you don't actually sign till November your senior year. But it was pretty much a done deal a year prior. So I think it actually helps to a degree. You don't have everybody calling you. You don't have all the distractions. Right. Now, when I would go and play at wherever, Olathe South or Shawnee Mission West, whatever, and you'd have a mediocre game, how is he going to Kansas? He sucks. That's a joke. Why would Roy? You'd hear that a lot, but that goes with the territory. And I think, it's kind of like Christian Brown. Christian Brown, great player in high school. And if he didn't have 30 and 15, well, how is he going to play at Kansas? Well, I think he proved that he belongs.
Right.
It just came out that he's on the all-freshman team. He's awesome, and
Right.
I love the future is really bright with Christian Brown. It's just.
But he had a similar experience to you.
I would imagine. I haven't
Right.
really talked to Christian about that because he's such a quiet, unemotional kid. But yeah, I mean, I went through that. I was the player of the year in the city. I was the Dorena Award winner, and I think Christian was as well, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, he should have been, but he was. Yes, right. And so it goes with the territory. You're going to be over-analyzed and over-critiqued, and that's what happened, but that's part of the deal.
Our guest is Greg Gurley. He is a lifelong Kansan and ends up being a lifelong adult Kansas Jayhawk in multiple ways. Talk about your relationship with Roy Williams. I think that the narrative for Roy has evolved in maybe not the greatest way in the Kansas nation over the years because nobody really expected. Everybody thought that Bill Self would be a great coach, but they're like, well, no way he's going to win 80% of his game. And then he did win a national championship and all that, and Roy has gone on to have a great career at North Carolina, but has had some down times too, and he seems to get crustier with age, but maybe that has made people not remember Roy as fondly as they did at the time where they were just dying that he left.
Well, it's unfortunate because you're right. I think there are people that are still bitter towards Roy. To me, in 1988, to do what Bob Frederick did was surprising, shocking, wouldn't happen again. So really think about this scenario. You win a national title. You go on probation. 2 guys say no to Kansas.
Right.
Like you would think whoever gets asked to coach at Kansas, you're going to say yes, you would think.
Right.
Gary Williams says no, goes to Maryland, and then Charlie Spoonhour says no. So here's Bob Frederick trying to decide, okay, I got one of the most storied programs in all of college basketball. We're getting ready to go on probation, and 2 people have told me no. And he listens to Dean Smith, and Dean Smith says, hey, I got this guy, Roy Williams, that people really haven't heard of outside of the state of North Carolina. The year before, Eddie Fogler,
Right.
the other assistant at North Carolina, came to Kansas and went to Wichita State. And so Roy wasn't even the number 1 assistant because that was
Right.
Bill Guthridge forever, who's also a Kansan, by the way.
Right.
And he says, take a flyer on this guy, Roy Williams. And they hire him. I had never heard of him. I don't know if you had back in the day.
No.
And I think that's the majority of people outside of the state of North Carolina or ACC country. So you think about that decision and how that affected so many people in the history of college basketball. So first year they're on probation. I believe he goes 19-12.
But they did get to number 1 in the country, I believe, at one
Not
point.
first year.
But, I mean, they were
Second year.
really good and then lost a bunch of games
Right.
that first year.
And then, third year, he plays for a national championship.
Right.
After one of those years being a probation year.
Right.
So I tell all those naysayers that kind of boo-hoo Roy Williams, I'm like, we could be a lot of other places right now. If Bob Frederick makes a bad decision and doesn't hire Roy Williams and hires, I don't know, I'm not going to throw anyone under the bus, but let's say whoever he hires.
Charlie Spoonhour, who
Yeah.
went on to have some success, but not great success.
So just say that, or whoever. And 3-4 years in, the program doesn't go on the uptick. It actually goes on a downtick, and you have to fire that person. Then you got to hire somebody else. And then who knows? You could be, I mean, we've had 8 coaches in the history of Kansas basketball, 8, which is nuts, 120
Right.
plus years to only have 8 coaches. I mean, there's programs that have had 8 coaches in the last 15 years.
Right.
And so back to Coach Williams, it is very frustrating that people still poo-poo his, legacy here. I'm a loyal Roy guy, as I should be. Played for him. I love the guy. And that's not by any means an opinion about Bill Self. It has nothing to do with Bill Self.
Right.
Nothing. His 15 years here, he won an amount of games that everyone was just shocked by. And then Bill does better.
Right.
It couldn't have worked out any better.
Right.
The last thing I'll say about it, though, before we talk about it working out, you've been in media your whole life. You go up and ask Roy Williams, hey, are you staying or are you going? And if he says, well, I think I'm staying, but I'm kind of going to dabble my name out here, and I might do it. What is everyone's reaction? Well, then you should just go if there's any question at all.
Right.
And then he stays.
Right.
And I'm sure he regrets the comment that I'm going to be here for the rest of my life, whatever. But when you get a microphone in front of we get 10 microphones in front of your face, sometimes you say stuff.
Also, you feel like this is Carolina. Whoever they hire is going to succeed. And there's no way, this is a lifetime. I think he believes it's a lifetime decision. He doesn't know that. I think who did they hire? Matt Doherty right there.
Well, Guthridge did it for a year. And then Matt Doherty.
Right.
Yes.
So that doesn't work. He doesn't think that's not going to work.
Right.
I don't understand that whole narrative. But I think part of it also from a personal level is that I always get along great with Roy. There were people who thought he was, not genuine or whatever. What was your relationship like with him?
Well, I would say it would be more like a father figure. Like you were intimidated by him. I mean, he was a little guy that could put the fear of God in you. And now, I think coaching has evolved into where I don't know if you can coach like that anymore. The Bob, and by no means am I comparing him to Bob Knight, but he was tough. I mean, and I haven't been to a North Carolina practice in years, so I don't know how they do it. But our practices were awful. Like, they were hard. I mean, I dreaded our practices at 1:30, 2 o'clock every day when we knew we were coming over to practice at 3. You get like butterflies. You're like, this is going to suck every day because it was hard.
Right.
And I'm not saying that now practices aren't hard, but I just don't know if you can coach kids the way you used to. And again, I'm back to sounding like an old fuddy-duddy, but I just don't believe that you can coach that way anymore because kids will just transfer or they'll get pissed off or whatever.
Right.
I mean, there was a protocol like, you're a freshman, this is how you do it, and, kind of bide your time. If you're not a star.
Right.
Kind of bide your time, and maybe as a sophomore and junior, you start to play more, and that was, you didn't think about anything else. You're like, okay, I'm going to wait my turn. I just don't know if that happens anymore, but Coach Williams was great. I mean, I use this statement a lot. The hardest thing about coaching, and in a lot of things, is 3 things. That's to be loved, feared, and respected.
All at the same time.
All at the same time. That's very, very, very difficult to do. I mean, I would say there's guys out there that were definitely feared, and with fear comes respect, but does love. And I don't know if that's the case with a lot of guys. With Roy Williams, yeah, you definitely feared him. You for sure respected him, and he was so good to all of us that we loved him. And Bill has taken that to another level because I've watched Bill, the way he coaches, it's different than Roy, but it works. And to say that Roy's works better than Bill's or Bill's works better than Roy, it doesn't. They're 2 completely different ways of coaching, and they're both uber successful. Now, if you looked at it at just trophies, I guess you would say Coach Williams has 3 chips and Bill has 1.
But at Kansas, Bill has 1 and Roy had 1.
Right. I mean, and as I look at Roy's career here at Kansas, it really pisses me off when people say he couldn't win the big game at Kansas. Like, coaches get way too much credit, way too much criticism. Roy is no different. You telling me in 2003 that Roy Williams couldn't win that game, like it was his fault when we go 12 of 32 from the free throw line and lose by 3.
Right.
I mean, that's not coaching.
Right.
That's not being able to win a big game. And I can go back, did Roy get out coached against Arizona in 97? No. Guys didn't make shots.
Right. And that was a better team than anybody really knew.
Right.
I mean,
at the time, who is Mike Dickerson, and who is Miles Simon, who is Jason Terry.
Jason Terry played, 15
years in the NBA. But
right?
At the time, you're exactly right.
Right.
So, Kansas fans were all, just like all fans, we're all really good at spinning losses. And we're going to spin the Arizona loss, like you said, and I agree with you, that it was a better team than we knew. But it doesn't matter if they were a better team than we knew. We still should have won.
And still were supposed to win, yeah.
And still was supposed to win. And might go down as the best team in the history of Kansas basketball that didn't even make an Elite 8.
Right.
That's a joke I always use, too, is I scored more points in a Final Four than Paul Pierce and Scott Pollard and Jack Vaughn.
More of Danny's Reasonably Irreverent podcast after this. For many people, a family law case will be one of the most difficult experiences in their life. The law firm of Kenneth McRae will help you through it. Personal and effective help from Ken in concert with you will develop a unique strategy for your unique case. As Ken always says, divorce can be civil law, not civil war. Licensed in Kansas? Visit McRaeLawOffice.com or call 913-972-4765.
My friends at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture are among the most accomplished and trusted clinics in the nation. Only one clinic has been rated in the top 5 in all 3 categories of chiropractic care, acupuncture, and rehabilitation, and that clinic is ASFCA. They have locations in Olathe, Overland Park, Prairie Village, Belton, and Lee Summit. Doctors Brad and Christina Woodle and their accomplished team of doctors and therapists will treat you like family, for the simplest of injuries to the most complicated conditions to avoid surgery. Whether you are seeking treatment for an injury or just looking to stay healthy and fit, this is the place for you. And it's been the place for me for almost 2 years now. I have been a strenuous daily exerciser for years, and as time goes on, that takes its toll. But regular appointments at Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture have helped keep me ticking on, and even as the years pile up, their regular care has allowed me to keep to my regimen and feel great. If you want to feel the same, give them a call or visit them at asfca.com/Danny. They accept all insurances and are open Monday through Saturday, and make sure to mention that Danny Clinkscale recommended Advanced Sports and Family Chiropractic and Acupuncture.
Hey guys, it's Brian Haney, voice of the Jayhawks, and Matt Llewellyn from the 23rd Street Brewery. Matt, I've got a bunch of buddies coming over to watch the big game, and I need some ideas on what to cook.
Hey, let me handle it, Brian.
You're going to come over and cook for us?
For you? Maybe. But you should just let 23rd Street Brewery cater it. We could bring a big pan of Bill Self mac and cheese, wings, veggies, naked nachos, and anything else you might want.
Great. Well, you want to stick around and watch the game?
No, I've got to get back to the brewery and watch it on the big screen.
The place to get great catering and watch all the games, the 23rd Street Brewery in Lawrence.
Cinematic Visions has been an affordable solution for professional media production in Kansas City since 2003, offering award-winning video production and creation, as well as a wide array of digital and social media management services. From planning, scripting, filming, editing, and post-production, to delivering your product to a watching world, Cinematic Visions will provide professional and affordable services for you and your business with the necessary return on investment to make it all worthwhile. Cinematic Vision's goal is to unlock the power of storytelling through video and a strong online presence for your company. Beyond the numbers, they want to inspire and evoke your clients to feel and act. Let my friends at Cinematic Visions embed your brand where it belongs, in your customers' minds. You can find them online at cinematicvisions.com or with a quick phone call at 816-600-6300. If you'd like to join these and other great sponsors and market your business to a growing and engaged audience, contact us at Danny@DannyClinkscale.com. Look forward to hearing from you. Our guest is Greg Gurley, and of course now he is the color announcer for the Kansas Jayhawks and Jayhawk player. I'll tell this story. One of my favorite moments in Kansas basketball really was your final game, and a regular season game. And you started because it was senior night, and it was a game to decide the last. Why
do you say it like that? You don't think I would have started anyway?
I don't think so, but
you're right.
But anyway, you had a great game, and the game was for the Big 8 title, the final Big 8 title, I believe. Is that correct?
No, there was one more year of the Big 8 after 95, but
okay.
Played Oklahoma State.
Right.
We were tied. Whoever won, it was like a Sunday afternoon game, I think, and whoever won it won the title.
Won the championship. And the clinching moment, I think, of the game came when you hit a three-pointer from the corner and were fouled on the play. And I still vividly remember you laying on your back and, like, dancing on your back after you made the shot.
Right.
And I kept that videotape until there were no more videotape players. I'll tell you that. What are your memories of that final game?
Well, that final game was so emotional because it was the only game that I ever started in my career, and it was cool. Also, the magnitude of the game made it even cooler. Obviously, I had a ton of friends and family there. and I wanted to do well and get my name called and run out. And then actually starting and playing a significant amount of minutes, which I, in my career, my junior and senior, I'd play, 12, 15 minutes a game, but I was never a starter, obviously. But so many side stories in that game, because that was the return game after we played Oklahoma State in Stillwater, and Bryant Reeves had like 30 points. And 20 or something. He had a crazy number against Greg Ostertag. And in that game, he had zero. Yeah. First time in the history of his career that he didn't score in a game, and it was that big of a game on the road for Oklahoma State to win.
Made Greg Ostertag a lot of money.
Made Greg a lot of money. Didn't make the other Greg a lot of money.
No.
But the guy that I started against, who's become a good friend, is Randy Rutherford.
Right.
And I looked up the box score recently, and I think I played less than 15 minutes. So Randy scoring 45 couldn't have all been on me. It was a lot on Jared Haas. But I ended up with,
13 points.
13, okay. And then the 5-point play was something I'll never forget, because also another Greg Gurley trivia question is, I don't know this to be 100% true, but I would imagine it is probably the only 5-point play.
Oh, I forgot it was a 5-point play. They said the foul was after the shot was
released. Which was a bad call.
Yeah.
Like, if I was broadcasting a game and they did that now, I would go crazy, because I made it. He kind of stepped on my foot. I kind of Reggie Millered it a little bit and, flailed and acted. And I got the foul, and they gave me a 1-and-1. And I made both the free throws, and it was a true 5-point play with no technical or nothing.
Right.
So that also in that game, I was knocked out cold in the first half. I took an inadvertent elbow to the temple, and at center court, I'm out, like, unconscious. They take me in the locker room, smack me around a little bit, give me a little smelling salts, and I go back in. Which, if that happened now, you would have been duct taped to a metal gurney and taken to the hospital.
Right.
Now, that might explain some of my dustiness as a 47-year-old. But back then, if you got knocked out and you didn't come back in, you were kind of ridiculed. Like,
right.
Oh, tough it out, dude. You can rest after the game, which is exactly what I did. But it is interesting that all those scenarios happened in the one game. Then we had a big party afterwards, and it was my parents threw a big party out at Alvamar, and it was a day I'll never forget.
That's really, really cool. So you finish up. You really, obviously, you're a reserve. You don't have designs on playing professional basketball. What was the adjustment like right after college?
It wasn't really hard, because I had come to grips with the fact that I wasn't a professional player. I had a few offers to go play overseas. That was when there was always a lot of overseas professional basketball, but it was becoming more advantageous to go and make, a little bit of money right out of college, more money than you would make, selling insurance or whatever. So I didn't do it, but I had like 15 hours left to graduate. So I took a 5th year of college, and it was a great year. I had a ball, because I didn't have to go to practice every day, 3:30, and I had a fantastic year. Didn't do a whole lot, and that was really the first time in my life that I wasn't like doing something every single day at a high level. And as an athlete, you cherish those days. And then I graduate, got married, got a job, sold insurance. I didn't do it very well, but I never really. You
never had like a grieving process or withdrawal from playing competitive sports?
No, because I always had a great friend group and family group, and always stayed pretty busy, professionally and socially. So as long as you stay busy, I think the beauty of my job now is that I get all that now. I get the camaraderie. I get hanging out in the locker room with the players and the coaches. I get the travel on the buses and the planes. I get all that now, and I don't have to work out and practice with them and get beat up every day. So,
and that's what most players say they miss the most anyway.
Yeah, people, everyone complains about the travel and other stuff. I enjoy it, because that's when you get time with your friends that you work with, whether it's the coaches, fellow broadcasters, the team, whatever. I get that now, and that fills a void that a lot of people don't have, because now a lot of you just, you sit around, you watch games on TV, and you kind of like, God, I wish I was there, and I get to do it. So, and I get paid, which is a whole nother bonus.
There you go.
So I'm pretty fortunate. Most people aren't. I was never as you can tell, not a professionally trained broadcaster because when they first asked me to do it, I was like, I tried to talk them out of it because I'd never done it. I was like, I'm not broadcast. And back then, nowadays you're seeing the Tony Romos and the soon to be Peyton Manning on the mic, probably making crazy money. But they're naturals at it. But back then that didn't happen as much. At least I don't remember it happening as much.
And you started at Sunflower Cablevision, so you sort of
really started at Metro Sports.
Okay.
Back when they did a live call-in show that was televised, which was not always a great idea because you had no ability to hang up. Well, you could hang up on a guy,
but you didn't screen the call, right?
Yeah.
There was no delay.
But that was fun. Did it with Brad Porter and Duke Fry and all those guys, and then started doing some games.
Right.
And I guess I'm doing okay. They keep hiring me.
That's exactly right. They keep doing that. How did you tell me the story of meeting your wife?
Well, it's actually, I don't know if it's really meant for the public. I'll try to dumb it down a little bit.
Okay.
Lake of the Ozarks.
This is a podcast.
Okay, it's a podcast, and I've told this story many times. I was at the Lake of the Ozarks on the way home from wherever we were at. I had to go to the bathroom. And we went into the woods and relieved ourselves, and then I thought it'd be a good idea to have other cars off the road come join us in this parking lot that we were in. Second car to pull over was a girl named Tracy, and in the passenger seat was Amy, who is my wife. And they pulled over to see what was going on.
So you just wave people down and say, hey, we're having a party, basically?
Pretty much, yeah. I'm kind of a social person, and I thought that would be a good idea. And this was August of 1990.
Okay.
I went to the blonde girl, the passenger, Amy, got her number after 2 or 3 minutes of rapping, and then got her number, called her, went over there, and went on a date about a week later, and that was 30 years ago.
Wow, so you were what, 19?
18.
18.
Yeah.
18 years old.
Yeah, high school. High school senior. She was a high school junior. She went to Cheyenne Northwest. She was a cheerleader at Northwest, had to cheer against us my senior year, as she was kind of hopefully rooting me on under her breath while she was cheering for the Cougars.
So is it just a smooth old ride on it? You get married right after college, right?
Yeah, we got married in 97, so 22 years ago. 2 kids, Kate and Jane. Kate's a sophomore Gamma Phi here at KU, and Jane's a junior at Blue Valley North, and who will more than likely come to school here. She said she's only applying to one school, and hopefully she gets in.
Was there ever
Was there ever any thought
of either of your kids breaking the Jayhawk mold, or?
Not really. No, I say not really, not at all. I mean, they've been brainwashed from day one, and they get to do stuff that most kids don't get to do. Like, I personally didn't go to a college basketball game until I started getting recruited. Both my parents went to Central Missouri State. We didn't go to games. We didn't have tickets. We weren't necessarily fans of Kansas, but I wasn't a K-State guy or a Missouri guy or a Kansas guy. I became a Kansas guy when I started to get recruited more than anything. But my kids, they go to Maui with the team. You think about the things that my kids have been able to participate in. It's crazy. But it's cool. I'm glad. I'm ecstatic that they get to do it. But, they've been around Roy Williams and Bill Self their whole life. They couldn't get any better than that. And they're very, very fortunate, and they want to continue here at Kansas and hopefully live in Kansas City. And, my daughter, she's in accounting, and she'll graduate next year and then get her master's as well. And who knows where that'll take her. I hope she stays in Kansas City, but they're great. And now that she's at KU, I see her more as a college student than when she was living at home, because she comes by all the time. It's awesome.
There you go. That's great. Talk about your wife and your relationship with her through the years.
She's been, my entire career, and has seen, I talked about how miserable practice was, and I would, after practice, go see her, and she'd be like, "Yeah, this looks miserable." And so she's been around coaches and my teammates and everybody for so many years that it's fun now to take her to games and see my old teammates and be around, my old coaches and whatever, because she's been with me for 30 years throughout basically my whole playing career. So she runs the house. My kids throughout volleyball, that was, if you've ever been involved in competitive volleyball, it's wake up at 5:30 on Saturdays and be at a tournament from 6 a.m. to 6 p.m. every Saturday times 2 for many, many years. So she missed out on a lot of Kansas. Like, I missed out on a lot because of my job. I missed out on, pretty much from September to April, I work every Saturday.
Right.
And you've done the same thing, and it's not hard work. It's not digging ditches or whatever, but they're long days, and you'd miss a lot of stuff. And so she's been there to do everything with them. I wish I could have, but there are definitely sacrifices that you make, and having a good partner is a key.
And now your relationship on radio-wise is with Brian Haney, but you started out in a pretty daunting situation, taking over for a slot from Chris Piper, who had taken over from Max Falkenstein, but you're working with a Hall of Famer in Bob Davis, and you mentioned your trepidation as a broadcaster. You've been doing it for a while, but still, those are big shoes to fill.
Sure. I mean, basically the way it happened was Chris Piper, who replaced Max. I mean, we obviously can't do this without talking about Max. I mean, 60 years on one seat is just ridiculous. I mean, it's so cool. We lost him last year. He was an icon and a legend. But then Chris, I want to say, did it for 6 years.
Yeah.
And then Chris had a business that was really growing and still is here in Lawrence Grandstand. And he basically wanted to travel less and kind of came to me and said, I'm thinking about stepping down. And I was doing the Jayhawk television network at the time. And he was doing the radio. And I was working here. And I was already traveling with basketball. And so I had about a 10-minute interview for the job with Jason Booker, who is now with the Kansas City Royals, great friend. And Jason goes, "You want to do this?" I was like, "Yeah, sounds cool." Didn't talk about money, didn't talk about anything. Right. We basically, over a beer, agreed to be the new color guy for the Jayhawk radio network. And then, like you said, working with another legend, and Bob Davis, who has become such a dear friend. And I obviously was around Bob a lot when I was playing.
Right.
And I actually, like if you ask the guys on the team right now what my name is, I bet you half of them will be like, "I don't know, it's just that big dumb guy that always seems to be around." And they probably know that I'm the broadcaster, but I have different relationships with the players. Some are more quiet, some I'm, I still talk to Devontae and Svi all the time. But that's not the case with everybody. It's just it's how it works. But with Bob and Max, when I was playing, I always, even though I didn't think I would become a broadcaster, I always enjoyed talking to them because they were funny guys. I mean, you've been out with Bob and Max for many, many times, and they were great. And as a player, I remember them. And then then being able to be in that chair with Bob, who he had such it was just so easy. Like, you didn't have to try that hard with Bob. Bob was just easy. Like, he made you laugh. He had emotion that you believed. Like, it was he was. So I still talk to Bob. Like you and I were talking before we did this. I talk to Bob every week, and he misses it. But he's still around, and he's again, I talk to him all the time. I miss him, and he would just made it so enjoyable because he was just so easy to work with. Then you move on to Brian Haney, and Brian, I mean, there's not a bigger KU homer in the world other than me, I guess. But he did. I mean, he loves this job, as he should.
Yes.
And he's very passionate about it, and we have a great time with Brian, and he does so much here in the community. I mean, the play-by-play guy is one thing, but you will not meet a nicer, more prepared guy than Brian. I like to think I'm a nice guy, but not very prepared. Brian, I kind of have to cheat off of Brian a lot when he gives me his stuff that he prepares for the game, because I don't like to get too, like, I don't want to have too much in my head. I like to just be more
watch the game
and call it as I see it, as opposed but Brian does a great job at both. But if you looked at preparedness of one and not the other, Brian is on this crazy scale up here, and I'm like, who do we play tonight?
Right. And talk about making it easy. You obviously have to. It's the wrong phrase, but talk to Bill Self all the time.
No, that's fair. Have to is right.
And he's just. I mean, I saw a quote from you recently about somebody asking a dumb question or whatever, and I have been in press conferences where people have asked the most really stupid questions you could ever imagine, and he never makes them look bad. I specifically remember one where he was going for a milestone victory, 400, whatever it was, 340, I don't know which one it was at the time. And so there was going to be a game on Monday on the road, and then there was going to be a game on Saturday. And he needed one more win. And the person asked this question said, wouldn't you rather win that game at home, win your milestone game at home? So, like, hey, you want to go out and dump that Monday night game? This is like the dumbest question ever. And he just did not make the person look foolish.
Well, I have answered, when people ask me about Bill, I say that all the time because I'm around him so much, and we hear people that aren't there every day ask him dumb questions. And he never is condescending. He makes the person feel comfortable even with their dumb question and answers it in a way. Now, later on, he might be like, hey, did you hear that?
Right.
But he's just, we call him the chameleon because he fits in with everything he does, whether he's a professional speaker to 500 veterinarians, or he's talking to the NABC, or he's talking to his team. He'd be good as a CEO of a company. He'd be good as a politician. He'd be good as a fundraiser. And hopefully he doesn't listen to this and hear all the positive things that I'm saying, because our little back and forth stuff, he likes to make fun of me, and I'll get in my digs every once in a while. But I've never worked in broadcasting with anyone else, so I don't know what others would be like as far as interviewing coaches. Right. I do a pregame interview and a postgame audio interview with him every game. And so that's, you figure, about 80 times a year. In the span of 5 months, I interview him, and it's great right now because you have stuff to talk about. But in November, when you're in those, you're playing some directional school, there's only so much to talk about. And sometimes the questions are kind of like, hey, what do you think, or your thoughts, and he'll make fun of me and what. So I say that when I ask him a dumb question, he'll make me feel bad. I compliment him on that, but if I were to do it, he'll definitely call me out.
Right.
But again, I've never worked with anyone else, so I don't know. I just know how easy he makes it, because there's a lot of difficult times that I have to interview him. When you're like last year, we lost at West Virginia, and we were the better team, and we should not have lost that game. And that was as bad of a locker room as I've been a part of. And it was just, and then I know I got to turn my phone on and have a little summary of the game, throw in an ad, and then say, what happened, essentially. Right. And he's going to look at me like, well, you know what happened, and
right.
And so I also tell this a lot, people don't understand the atmosphere at which I interview him. It's all of our assistant coaches, usually our athletic director, a few other administrators, basically hovering over us as I ask.
Right.
And being audio, some of them make faces at me, some of them make hand gestures at me, and some of them might be throwing popcorn at me, and I'm not patting myself on the back, but it's not as easy as you think, especially in those situations that are negative. Right. Most of which are positive. We have an unbelievable winning percentage, but there's also times that we win and it's awful.
Right.
Where he doesn't think we won by enough, or we didn't do this right at the end of the game. I mean, think about the Kansas State game this year. That was not enjoyable.
Right.
That was not enjoyable at all, but he makes it fine. He makes it easy with me, with press conferences with, we'll be on the golf course, and there'll be people that'll come up and talk to him and ask him a dumb question, and he's super nice. Like, and you've been around celebrities your entire life, and some of them handle it differently than others. Some are jerks.
Right.
Some are the greatest guys in the world. Some are right in the middle. I would put him
way at the top.
Way at the top.
Yeah, absolutely. What's the future hold for Greg Gurley? You're somebody who's so comfortable in your own skin and seem to really embrace and enjoy life, and people gravitate to you and like being around you, and it seems like you've got a pretty good life, but what do you think's in store?
People ask me all the time, do I want to take broadcasting to a different level, whether that be ESPN or whatever, and not to sound like I'm complacent, but I don't have any aspirations of, nationally doing stuff, and nor do I think I'm good enough to do that. But some people do. I'm just telling you what they ask me, and I love what I do here. I went here, played here, still live in Kansas City. I don't want to do anything else. I'd love to be, I'm 47 years old. I'd love to do this into my, 70s if I live to be that long. I'd love to continue to work here in the Williams Fund and be, by no means am I comparing myself to John Hadel, but I work with John in the fundraising capacity, and I'd love to have a career like him where I'm a lifer. I don't want to be an administrator. I don't want to be a manager. I like you said, being social, boots on the ground, raising money for my alma mater, putting a headset on when I have a game, and doing that. And I could probably go out and make more money doing something else, because I am a state employee and a broadcaster, and I think as good as anyone how much broadcasters make, and there's a big misconception on how much broadcasters make. Like we're not all Jay Billis, and we're not all Dick Vitale flying around private doing games on a Saturday in Lubbock. That's not reality, folks. I mean, I'm not saying I'm underpaid, but it's not as much money as you think. That's
just what the industry is.
Yeah, it's just what it is. It's radio, and even if I was television, again, you got to do this for a living, you got to do football, basketball. There's not many Kevin Harlans out there. I mean, I look at Kevin like just the best voice, universally the best at all the different sports he does. And so I don't aspire to be that. And again, I don't want to sound like I'm okay with being complacent, but I kind of am. I don't see myself doing anything else now. Time will tell, and maybe my bosses have different opinions, but as long as they keep asking me to do it, I'd like to do it.
This podcast was made possible by our great sponsors like Eason Roofing, the presenting sponsor of Kansas City Profiles at the Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Eason Roofing, where integrity matters. We hope you enjoyed the latest Danny Klingscale Reasonably Irreverent podcast. Come back soon for something fresh and new.